And transitioning more into your acquisitions background, you mentioned somebody who I have admired for quite some time, Dr. Will Roper, somebody who has a Georgia connection like me. Can you describe the collaborations that you and Dr. Roper worked on in the past, and where you sort of see some of those activities from the scope perspective, like Perdix, swarming drones, and all of that sort of finding traction as time goes on, if you would mind sharing?
Well, I should be clear. I worked for Dr. Roper, but I think he viewed me as part of the bureaucracy in my role because I was doing like all this policy and act strategy and all this stuff. So I don't think I could be considered part of his core team, but I did a lot. I did a lot for him in terms of like getting the workforce to think, trying to get think differently through how we got act strategies up to him, and how we got a lot of money for different projects and moved a lot of things around. But I was more in that role of executing his things. I wasn't quite in his planning circle, so I won't overstate my collaboration with him. But he was what he did consistently is he consistently sent the right message. And this is, I think, what all leaders need to do in an organization is like, it wasn't just a one-time thing, it wasn't a one-time memo that he sent out and was like, hey, we need to be different, you need to do things different. It was a consistent drumbeat. He would visit the different units, the different acquisition offices, and he would tell that story every opportunity at the events like AFA and stuff. He would tell that story. He would write like weekly emails to the workforce, giving them a rundown of his thinking on different stuff. And so it was a real example to me of just like how a acquisition leader in particular, should what you need to do to change the culture. Because he really did. He started to shift people out of that legacy mindset of like, we need to have honestly, act strategies were ridiculous. It was a template. People would fill in the template, and it was very compliance oriented. So it was just like, make sure you have this in there. Make sure you say cybersecurity and you use the right words. Make sure you say this, for this documentation. And that's what people did. People were scared to brief an act strategy because they were like, who's going to catch me on not being compliant with this one little thing? And he was like, nah, I don't care about that. Like, come and talk to me about your strategy, your story. Like, give me the story of what you're trying to achieve, and then, let's talk through it. And I sat in, dozens of act strategy panels with him, and he would listen. He'd ask like questions about like, well, what about that? Where's that going to go? And how's that going to work? He didn't like beat people. I've seen in the past, people just get beat to death on their risk chart, like why they missed one of the risks, and like, they'd like get thrown out of the room or something. It wasn't like that, right? It was like, cool, okay, it sounds like you have a story, you have a good plan. Let's go execute and see how you do. Let's take it, see what you can do in the next year, and then we'll revisit this. And I really think that's how we need to go. And there's been some reversion of that in the department with some of the policies. It's become more people added in, steps added in, additional compliance added in, and we're starting to lose that, and we need to regain it, because we had an opening there with Dr. Roper and some other people on the other service staffs and in OSD, and we need to make sure. And I think that memo, the software pathway memo that went out, I think that's a great start of sending the message to the workforce, like, no, you guys need to be different, and don't just don't do the same old thing.
Yeah, I think, this administration is definitely going to put some kerosene on the fire of actually doing things a lot cheaper and a lot faster. So it'll be very interesting to put your popcorn in the microwave, take it out, and sort of see how things unfold. So transitioning into your time over at MITRE, how many of you are familiar with the federally funded research and development centers, FFRDCs? So we're pretty good. Could you talk? Oh, yep. Could you talk a little bit about your time over there, and then also, too, in your assessment, what could FFRDCs be doing a little bit more of in order to go ahead and unlock a lot more innovation out there?
I'll talk about MITRE, because aerospace, I'm a big fan of Jamie. I talk to Jamie Morin all the time, and so I think they're getting it. They're not, there's a lot of people in aerospace that probably think very traditionally, but at MITRE, I would just say there's some people who get it, but there is, I think overall in the FFRDCs, there's a little bit of a bias, and maybe it comes from thinking almost like a lab or a engineering support kind of a mindset, but it's very much about like starting from scratch almost with everything. It's like we have to develop a new architecture and whole new grand thing, and we need to like have detailed specs, and everything has to be interface. It's still kind of legacy-ish thinking. And because they provide so much support to program offices, and program offices don't have the expertise, they often have to rely on them. So there are definitely innovative shops in these different organizations, but I do think program offices have to be willing to push back and to give their FFRDC support a vision. To be like, listen, I want to maximize cuts. I want to speed. Speed is number one. I want to like iterative approaches. Like that's what I'm focused on. And I think if the program managers are more explicit about what they want and they give the right vision, then the minor people, like they're all smart people. So they'll start to fall in line, and they'll get better at coming up with approaches that are more suited to the stuff we were just talking about, being more software defined, being fast and iterative and all that stuff. So yeah, so I would just say culturally they're not probably fully aligned right now with what the future is going to look like, but I think the leadership of those organizations has got the message that they need to be, and so I think you'll start to see some shifts in that. But
Yeah, I sincerely hope so, because there's a lot of intellectual talent at the FFRDCs all across the country. It would be so nice to have a seamless process to where we're able to go ahead and bring that thought leadership. And like you said, also get the program managers and the program executive offices to understand that there's a rising tide lifting all boats if we can actually figure out that business process to sort of brings it all together.